Sometimes the people with the least to give are the only ones willing to save what the rest of the world throws away. Rain had been falling over the city since late afternoon, cold enough to slip through worn fabric and settle into the bones like something personal. By midnight, the alley behind Moretti's Italian steakhouse smelled of wet concrete, overflowing dumpsters, and forgotten things. Nobody important ever walked back there. At least, that was what most people believed. The black SUV rolled slowly into the narrow service lane, headlights cutting through the rain like quiet knives against the darkness. The vehicle gleamed, even beneath the storm, polished and expensive, completely out of place beside rusted delivery doors and leaking garbage bins. Soft jazz still drifted faintly from the restaurant around the corner, where wealthy guests laughed over wine glasses worth more than some people made in a week. The passenger door opened first. High heels touched wet pavement. Vanessa Moretti stepped into the alley holding a designer umbrella above perfectly styled dark hair untouched by rain. Diamonds shimmered at her wrist when she glanced impatiently toward the back seat. She looked annoyed more than angry, like someone delayed by an inconvenience too small to deserve emotion. "Come on," she muttered sharply under her breath. "This is ridiculous." The rear door opened. A trembling German shepherd climbed halfway out, hesitant. Her silver-brown fur clung damply against her body. Exhaustion shadowed every movement. Beneath her belly, signs of recent motherhood still showed clearly. Her ears lowered cautiously as she glanced up at Vanessa with uncertain amber eyes, tail moving weakly once, as though still hoping kindness had simply gotten lost for a moment. A cardboard box sat beside the SUV. Inside, 5 tiny puppies shifted softly beneath an old blanket already damp from the cold. Small sounds escaped them. Hungry sounds. Newborn sounds. The kind that somehow felt too fragile for a world this hard. Vanessa sighed impatiently and crouched just long enough to shove the box closer to the dumpster wall where rain dripped steadily from broken pipes overhead. "You should have never had those puppies," she muttered coldly, brushing invisible dirt from her coat. "Dominic barely has time for me already." The mother dog stepped forward immediately, nose pressing toward the cardboard box. Protective instinct overpowered fear. She positioned herself beside her puppies despite shivering hard enough to tremble visibly. Her body curved protectively around them, while rain soaked deeper into her fur. Vanessa stood and looked down for only a second longer. No sadness. No hesitation. Just irritation. Then she pulled something from her purse. A leather collar. Expensive. Dark brown. Silver tag glinting briefly beneath alley light. She hesitated only long enough to unclasp it from the dog's neck. "No reason to make this harder than it has to be," she whispered, mostly to herself. The dog stepped forward once, confused now. Hopeful, tail moving faintly again. Vanessa backed away immediately. "Do not follow me." Her voice turned sharp enough to make even silence pull back. The mother dog stopped, not understanding, still watching, still waiting. The SUV door shut. Engine started. Within seconds, red taillights disappeared beyond the rain, leaving behind only darkness and the sound of water tapping against broken pavement. The mother dog stood there for several moments without moving, watching the empty alley as though waiting for the world to correct itself. When nothing happened, she turned slowly toward the cardboard box. One puppy whimpered softly. She lowered herself beside them immediately, curling around the tiny bodies despite the cold spreading across the concrete beneath her. Across the street, beneath the shallow cover of an abandoned bus stop, someone had seen everything. Lily Harper sat with her backpack tucked tightly beneath her knees, oversized gray hoodie pulled low against the rain. 16 years old, and already carrying the quiet exhaustion of someone who had learned too early that not every goodbye came with explanations. Her sneakers were soaked through. Her stomach had been empty since lunch at the church shelter 6 hours ago. But none of that mattered right now. She could still see the dog standing in the alley after the SUV left. Waiting. Like somebody waiting outside a locked door long after everyone else already knew nobody was coming back. Lily looked down at the half sandwich wrapped carefully inside her backpack. The last thing she had for tomorrow. She hesitated. Hunger had a way of teaching people hard math. Survival first. Kindness later. But then she looked again toward the alley. The puppies barely moved anymore beneath the rain. The mother dog had shifted her body completely over them now, shielding them from water even while shaking from cold herself. Lily swallowed slowly. Something old and familiar tightened quietly inside her chest. She knew that feeling, being left somewhere nobody looked twice, waiting for footsteps that never came back. Before she could talk herself out of it, Lily stood. Rain soaked her hoodie instantly as she crossed the street. The mother dog noticed her immediately. Ears lifted, body stiffened. A low warning sound rose softly from her throat. Protective. Scared. Not dangerous. Lily stopped several feet away and slowly lowered herself onto one knee. Hey, she whispered gently through the rain. It is okay. The puppies shifted weakly beneath their mother. Lily looked closer and her chest tightened harder than she expected. They were tiny. Too tiny for a night this cold. I know, she said softly, voice trembling just enough to sound honest. I know what it feels like when somebody leaves. The dog watched her carefully. Rain dripped from both of them now. For a long moment, neither moved. Then one puppy let out a soft cry from inside the box. Lily slowly unwrapped the last half sandwich she owned. I do not have much, she whispered, holding it out carefully. But maybe we can figure something out together. The mother dog lowered her head slightly, uncertain eyes never leaving Lily's face, while somewhere above them thunder rolled softly across the city like the sound of something bigger quietly changing direction. Lily stayed kneeling in the rain longer than most people probably would have. Cold water slipped through the fabric of her hoodie and settled into her skin, but she barely noticed anymore. Hunger and weather had stopped surprising her months ago. What still surprised her was how quickly loneliness recognized itself in someone else. The mother dog had not moved. Her body remained curved tightly around the puppies, protective even through exhaustion. Amber eyes stayed fixed carefully on Lily's face, uncertain and wary, carrying the quiet fear of something that had already been disappointed too many times. Lily slowly placed the half sandwich on the wet pavement and leaned back just enough to look less threatening. You do not have to trust me, she whispered softly. I probably would not either. The rain softened for a moment, turning into something quieter against the alley walls. One puppy shifted beneath the mother dog and let out another weak sound, small enough to almost disappear beneath the city noise. Lily's chest tightened harder. They were freezing. Even she could see that. The cardboard box had already begun falling apart from water, edges sagging toward the pavement, while cold wind slipped through the alley like it had nowhere better to go. Slowly, the mother dog lowered her nose toward the sandwich. She hesitated first, glancing once toward Lily as though asking permission to believe kindness was still possible. Then hunger won quietly. She ate carefully but quickly, never moving far from the puppies. Lily let out a small breath she had not realized she was holding. Good girl, she said gently, voice soft enough to feel safe. The dog looked up immediately at the sound of kindness. Not trust yet, but something closer than before. Lily carefully pulled her backpack into her lap. Inside sat everything she owned. One extra pair of socks, a flashlight with weak batteries, a small church blanket folded tight, half a bottle of water, a notebook filled with things she never showed anyone, and $43 wrapped carefully in tissue paper beneath old receipts. Not enough for much. Definitely not enough for 6 hungry dogs. She swallowed hard. Survival had rules. Everybody knew that. When you had almost nothing, you protected what little you still owned. But rules felt different when something smaller than you looked colder than you did. Lily slowly pulled the blanket from her backpack and unfolded it carefully. The edges smelled faintly like detergent from the church shelter 3 weeks earlier. She hesitated only a second before stepping closer. Immediately, the mother dog stiffened again, protective instinct rising fast. Lily stopped. Hey, she whispered. Just trying to help. Thunder rolled quietly overhead again. Somewhere farther downtown, laughter spilled from a late-night bar while headlights moved lazily through puddles. Funny how cities worked sometimes. Somewhere, people were ordering dessert while 6 tiny lives fought cold behind a dumpster nobody looked twice at. Lily slowly lowered the blanket beside the puppies instead of reaching directly for them. You can decide, she said softly. I know being told what to do all the time kind of sucks. The dog watched her carefully for another long moment. Then, slowly, almost cautiously, she shifted just enough to allow the blanket closer to the puppies. Lily's heart softened immediately. Thank you, she whispered. Carefully now, she tucked the edges around the puppies without touching them too much. Tiny bodies moved weakly beneath warmth. One pressed closer toward another. Another let out the smallest sleepy sound. Relief settled quietly into the space between fear and exhaustion. Lily sat back against the brick wall nearby and pulled her knees to her chest. "Guess we are all kind of homeless tonight," she murmured softly. The mother dog lowered herself again, but did not stop watching Lily. Still cautious, still uncertain, yet somehow less afraid than before. Rain dripped steadily from the edge of the dumpster while wind pushed colder through the alley. Lily glanced toward the street. She knew one place nearby that stayed warm after midnight. The back loading area of an old laundromat 3 blocks away. Abandoned mostly. Dry if nobody bothered them. Better than freezing here. But moving 6 dogs through the rain would not be easy. Especially if the mother dog still thought humans only meant disappointment. Lily looked toward her again. "I know a place," she whispered carefully. "Not perfect, but warm enough." The dog tilted her head slightly. Listening now. Not understanding words maybe, but understanding tone. Lily smiled faintly despite herself. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I guess we are figuring this out together." If you are enjoying this story so far, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss more unforgettable stories like this one. Lily slowly stood and removed the oversized hoodie from her shoulders despite the cold immediately biting harder at her skin. Wearing only a thin long-sleeve shirt underneath, she gently stretched the hoodie toward the cardboard box. "You guys need it more than I do," she whispered. The mother dog watched every movement carefully. Then something changed. Slowly, carefully, she stepped forward and touched her nose lightly against Lily's hand for just a second before returning beside the puppies. Small, quick, but enough to feel like trust, trying very hard to remember how to exist. Somewhere above them, rain finally began easing, and for the first time all night, Lily allowed herself to believe maybe this story had not ended in that alley after all. The walk to the laundromat took longer than Lily expected. Rain still lingered in the air, softer now but cold enough to slip through her thin shirt and settle into her skin like something stubborn. She carried the sagging cardboard box carefully against her chest, trying not to jostle the tiny puppies sleeping beneath her oversized hoodie while water dripped steadily from the corners. The mother dog walked close beside her, never too far, never fully relaxed. Every passing car made her glance toward the road. Every sudden sound pulled her ears upright again. Fear had not left her yet. It had simply learned to move more quietly. Lily understood that better than most people ever would. Downtown looked different after midnight. The expensive restaurants emptied first. Then the office buildings darkened floor by floor until only gas stations, liquor stores, and tired people remained awake. Wind pushed wrappers across sidewalks, while distant sirens hummed somewhere too far away to matter. Lily kept moving, sneakers soaked through, fingers numb from cold gripping the cardboard tighter. "Almost there," she whispered softly, more to comfort herself than anyone else. The mother dog glanced up briefly, listening now, following because staying behind probably felt worse. 3 blocks later, the laundromat appeared exactly where Lily hoped it would be. Old blue sign. Half the letters burned out. Closed after 10. Forgotten after midnight. The building sat squeezed between an abandoned pawn shop and a storage unit place nobody ever seemed to visit anymore. Around the back, hidden from the street, sat the loading area where old deliveries used to happen years ago. It was not much. A rusted awning overhead. Cracked concrete. 2 old vending machines that had not worked in forever. But it stayed dry. And sometimes dry felt close enough to safe. Lily pushed open the side maintenance gate that never locked properly anymore. "Home sweet home," she said quietly with the kind of humor tired people used when things hurt too much to complain about. She lowered the cardboard box carefully onto an old stack of flattened moving blankets she had hidden there weeks earlier. Not stealing, just forgotten things nobody missed. The puppies shifted softly inside the box, tiny sounds escaping now that warmth surrounded them a little more. One crawled lazily toward another. Another pressed closer beneath the hoodie. Relief settled quietly into Lily's chest. Not safety exactly, but better than that alley. The mother dog stepped forward immediately and checked every puppy with careful attention before finally lowering herself beside them. Still tense, still watching Lily closely. Lily crouched nearby and rubbed warmth back into her freezing hands. "I know," she said softly. Still weird trusting strangers. The dog's amber eyes lingered on her face longer than before. Not scared exactly now, just uncertain. like trust had become something expensive. Lily reached carefully into her backpack again. A small plastic container sat near the bottom. Peanut butter crackers she had saved for breakfast. She stared at them for several seconds. Hunger twisted quietly in her stomach. Her last real food. $43 would not stretch very far. Winter always made things harder. Shelters filled faster. Soup kitchens closed earlier. People stopped looking at homeless kids like children and started looking at them like problems. She looked toward the puppies again. Tiny bodies pressed tightly against one another beneath the hoodie. The mother dog looked exhausted enough to collapse if she stopped paying attention for even a minute. Lily sighed quietly. Guess tomorrow can worry about itself. She opened the crackers and broke them into smaller pieces, placing them gently near the dog. The mother dog hesitated only briefly before eating. Slower this time. Less desperate. Trust growing carefully between them, like something fragile enough to scare away if touched too fast. Lily leaned against the wall and pulled her knees to her chest. Cold still settled everywhere, but somehow less cruel than before. The dog finished eating and moved closer to the puppies again. Then something unexpected happened. Slowly, carefully, she stood and walked toward Lily. Lily froze. The dog stopped just inches away, lowered herself onto the concrete, and rested her head lightly across Lily's worn sneakers. Quiet. Small. But enough to mean something. Lily blinked quickly. You really are trying, she whispered softly. She hesitated before reaching down slowly, fingers brushing gently against damp fur near the dog's shoulder. Warm despite everything. Real. Alive. The dog did not move away. Outside, rain finally stopped altogether. Silence settled over the city in that strange way it sometimes did just before dawn, when even lonely places felt tired enough to rest for a little while. Lily glanced toward the puppies again and smiled faintly despite herself. You guys are going to need names eventually, she whispered. Guess I should start with Mom. She studied the dog for a moment. Strong but tired. Protective even when scared. Gentle underneath fear. Daisy, Lily said quietly. You kind of look like a daisy. One ear lifted slightly at the sound. Lily laughed softly for the first time all week. Yeah, she said quietly. I think it fits. But as Daisy shifted beside the puppies again, something near her neck caught the weak overhead light for just a second. A small piece of leather barely hidden beneath damp fur. Lily frowned slightly and leaned closer. Wait, she whispered softly. What is that? Beneath Daisy's neck, tangled carefully in wet fur, sat something that definitely did not belong to a stray dog. Lily leaned closer, careful not to startle Daisy. The weak security light above the loading dock flickered softly, throwing pale gold across damp fur and cracked concrete. Daisy remained still, tired enough now that fear no longer arrived first. Her puppies slept quietly beneath the oversized hoodie, tiny bodies finally warm enough to rest. Lily gently brushed damp fur aside near Daisy's neck. Hey, she whispered softly. Let me see. Daisy watched her carefully, but did not pull away. Trust still looked fragile, but it had started. Tangled beneath wet fur sat a narrow strip of dark brown leather. Not cheap. Not worn like something left behind by accident. Expensive. Carefully made. Lily frowned and carefully loosened the strap enough to reveal what remained attached. A silver tag caught the dim light. Heavy. Clean despite everything. Definitely not something a stray dog would have. Lily rubbed the edge with her sleeve and turned it over slowly. 2 engraved letters stared back at her. DR. She blinked once. DR? She murmured quietly. Daisy lifted her head slightly at the sound of Lily's voice, ears twitching with tired curiosity. Lily turned the tag again. The back held part of an address, scratched but still visible beneath rainwater and dirt. Morady Heights. Unit 7. Lily frowned harder now. Morady Heights sat uptown. Everybody knew that place. Private gated neighborhood. Massive houses hidden behind tall stone walls where rich people lived far away from bus stops and cold sidewalks. Not even close to somewhere a dog like Daisy should have ended up alone behind dumpsters. You are not homeless, Lily whispered softly, looking at Daisy again. At least, you were not supposed to be. Daisy lowered her head again, but stayed close to the puppies. Lily stared quietly at the collar for another moment. Somebody had owned this dog. Somebody wealthy. Somebody who could afford real leather collars and private neighborhoods and probably heated floors during winter storms. So why dump a mother dog and newborn puppies in an alley? Something about it felt wrong in a way Lily could not quite explain. Not lost. Not forgotten. Deliberate. Across town, warm light spilled softly through the tall windows of a mansion overlooking the city hills. Dominic Russo stood near the fireplace inside a house too large to ever feel quiet. 42 years old, sharp suit still untouched after dinner, dark hair beginning to gray at the temples. He stared absently into a glass of untouched whiskey. The house looked expensive in the kind of way people noticed immediately. Marble floors. Paintings nobody really looked at. Chandeliers too beautiful to mean much after a while. Yet somehow the silence inside always felt louder than wealth. Vanessa crossed the room carrying her phone, diamonds catching warm light with every step. "You are still thinking about the dog?" she asked lightly, almost amused. Dominic looked up slowly. "Daisy does not disappear like that." His voice stayed calm, but tiredness lingered beneath it. "She never even leaves the property without following someone." Vanessa shrugged casually. "Animals run off sometimes." Dominic frowned slightly. "Not after having puppies." The room quieted. Vanessa hesitated just long enough to feel strange before smiling again. "Maybe she got confused," she said softly. "The gate was open for landscaping yesterday." Dominic said nothing for several seconds. He walked instead toward a framed photograph resting quietly on the fireplace mantel. An older woman smiling warmly while sitting beside a younger German shepherd with bright, alert eyes. Daisy. Smaller then. Happier. His mother had rescued her 6 years earlier after finding her abandoned during another storm. After his mother passed, Daisy became the last thing inside the house that still felt familiar. The last thing that somehow made silence feel less permanent. "Mom loved that dog," Dominic said quietly. Vanessa folded her arms. "Dominic," she said carefully, "they are dogs. You are acting like family disappeared." Something in the room shifted. Small. Quiet. But enough. Dominic looked at her differently for just a second. Hard to explain exactly. Like somebody hearing a wrong note inside a song they used to trust. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "family looks different than people expect." Vanessa looked away first. Outside, rain tapped gently against the windows. "I already posted online," she said quickly. "Reward, neighborhood groups, all that." Dominic nodded once, but something unsettled stayed behind his eyes. "Double it," he said. "I want flyers up by morning." Back at the laundromat, Lily sat quietly beside Daisy while dawn slowly threatened the edge of the sky. Sleep felt impossible now. Questions kept turning over inside her head. She carefully traced the silver tag again. Dr. Moretti Heights. Wealth. Expensive collar. Puppies abandoned like garbage. Nothing added up. Daisy shifted softly beside the puppies, then unexpectedly rested her head across Lily's leg again. Warmer now. Calmer. Lily looked down and smiled faintly. "Guess we both got questions nobody answers," she whispered. Outside, early delivery trucks began rumbling through quiet streets while cold morning light slowly crept between buildings. Lily glanced once more at the collar. Somewhere in this city, somebody either missed Daisy very badly or wanted her forgotten forever. And for the first time all night, Lily realized saving Daisy might be a lot more complicated than simply keeping her warm. Morning arrived quietly, the kind of gray city morning that made everything feel unfinished. Thin clouds hung low above rooftops while puddles from the night before reflected broken pieces of pale sunlight. The loading dock behind the old laundromat still smelled faintly of wet cardboard and soap left behind from a business that had stopped caring years ago. Lily had not slept much. Cold concrete had never been comfortable, but worry felt heavier than exhaustion now. Daisy and the puppies rested close beside her, warmer than before, wrapped safely beneath the oversized hoodie and church blanket. For the first time since the alley, the mother dog actually looked peaceful. Not relaxed exactly, but resting. Trust had begun settling carefully into the space between fear and survival. Lily sat cross-legged nearby holding Daisy's collar again. Dr. Moretti Heights. The letters kept turning over inside her mind. Rich neighborhood. Expensive dog. New puppies abandoned behind a restaurant. None of it made sense. Daisy slowly lifted her head and rested her chin against Lily's knee again. The kind of quiet closeness that happened when hurt finally stopped expecting disappointment every second. Lily smiled faintly and scratched gently behind Daisy's ear. "I still do not get it," she whispered softly. "Why would somebody leave you?" Daisy blinked slowly, tired amber eyes following Lily's face with calm patience. One puppy stretched lazily beneath the hoodie, tiny paws pressing against warmth before settling again. Lily's stomach growled hard enough to interrupt the silence. She laughed quietly despite herself. "Yeah," she muttered. "Guess breakfast is a thing." She checked the $43 hidden inside her backpack again. Still there. Still not much. Enough for cheap food if she was careful. But now there were 6 more mouths somehow depending on her. The realization felt terrifying and strangely comforting at the same time. Nobody had depended on Lily in a very long while. Across town, Dominic Russo stood near the front gate of his estate watching security workers pin missing posters to neighborhood bulletin boards. A large photograph of Daisy sat in the center beneath bold letters. "Missing family dog. Reward offered." Dominic folded his coat tighter against the morning wind. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixed. The kind grief quietly built over time. Beside him, his longtime groundskeeper, Frank, adjusted another stack of flyers. Still no sign. Frank asked gently. Dominic shook his head once. Nothing. He glanced toward the empty garden path, where Daisy used to follow him every morning without fail. She would not leave the puppies. Frank hesitated carefully. "You think somebody took her?" Dominic stared toward the driveway for a long second. "I do not know," he admitted quietly. "But something feels wrong." Inside the mansion, Vanessa sat near the kitchen island scrolling through her phone. Calm on the outside. Annoyed underneath. Every flyer posted felt like a problem growing larger than she planned. She had expected Daisy to disappear quietly into the city like inconvenient things usually did. She definitely had not expected Dominic to care this much. When Dominic entered the kitchen, she smiled too quickly. "Still worried?" she asked lightly. Dominic did not sit down. "You said she ran off near the back garden." Vanessa nodded immediately. "She did." Dominic looked at her for a second too long. "Strange," he said quietly. "Security cameras never picked her up leaving." Her smile faded almost invisibly. "Maybe a blind spot?" Dominic said nothing after that. But silence settled differently now. Less comfortable. Like doubt had quietly entered the room and decided to stay a while. Back near downtown, Lily wrapped the puppies carefully before standing. "Okay," she whispered softly. "We need food." Daisy stood immediately too. Tired, but ready. Loyal already in a way Lily had not expected this quickly. They walked together toward a small corner grocery store a few blocks away where day-old bread usually sold cheap, if you asked kindly enough. People glanced at them sometimes. A homeless girl. A large dog. Puppies wrapped inside a hoodie. Most looked away fast. Cities had mastered the art of pretending struggle belonged to someone else. Near the register inside the grocery store, a stack of newspapers sat beside candy bars and gum. Lily almost walked past them before one headline stopped her completely. "Large reward offered for missing German Shepherd." Her breath caught. Slowly, she picked up the paper. There was Daisy. Clean fur. Bright eyes. Standing beside a sharply dressed man outside a giant stone mansion. Reward, $25,000. Lily stared hard at the photo. Daisy looked healthy. Loved even. Definitely not abandoned. Then her eyes moved lower. Missing since yesterday evening. Believed to have wandered away unexpectedly. Contact Dominic Russo estate. Lily frowned immediately. Wandered away? No. Daisy had not wandered anywhere. Somebody had left her. She had seen it herself. Her stomach tightened quietly. $25,000 could change everything. Shelter. Food. School again maybe. A real bed. No more sleeping behind buildings. No more pretending cold did not hurt. She looked down at Daisy standing patiently beside her. The mother dog gently nudged Lily's hand before glancing protectively toward the puppies. Trust. Quiet. Honest trust. Lily swallowed slowly. "You deserve to go home," she whispered softly. But something inside her refused to settle. Because if Daisy truly belonged to people rich enough to offer that kind of reward, then why had somebody thrown her away like she meant nothing at all? Lily folded the newspaper carefully and slipped it into her backpack, but the headline stayed inside her thoughts long after the paper disappeared from view. $25,000. The number felt unreal. Bigger than anything she had ever imagined holding. Enough money to rent a room. Enough to buy clothes that actually fit. Enough to stop pretending cold sidewalks and bus stops counted as normal. Yet somehow, standing there beneath the buzzing grocery store lights, none of that felt as important as the uneasy feeling growing quietly in her chest. Daisy had not wandered away. Lily knew what she saw. Rich people did not usually leave expensive dogs in alleys by accident. Outside the store, cold morning wind moved softly between buildings, while downtown slowly woke up around them. Delivery trucks rolled past. Office workers hurried with coffee cups clutched in expensive gloves. Nobody looked twice at the homeless girl walking beside a tired German shepherd and carrying puppies wrapped inside an oversized hoodie. Daisy stayed close now, protective in a way that felt strangely familiar. Every few steps, she glanced toward Lily as though making sure she had not disappeared too. Lily crouched briefly near the curb and scratched softly behind Daisy's ear. "I think somebody misses you," she whispered quietly. Daisy tilted her head slightly. "But I also think somebody lied." The mother dog lowered her nose against Lily's hand for just a second before turning protectively toward the puppies again. Trust had deepened overnight. Not complete, but enough to matter. Enough to hurt if broken. By noon, clouds had finally started clearing. Lily sat beneath the shade of a city library awning while Daisy rested beside her. The puppies slept quietly inside a borrowed laundry basket Lily had found near the laundromat dumpster. Across the street, traffic moved endlessly while people passed carrying bags, lunchboxes, places to be. Lily unfolded the newspaper again and stared harder at the photograph. Dominic Russo looked serious in the picture. Wealthy, definitely. Powerful too. But something about his expression unsettled her in a different way. He looked sad. Not angry. Not annoyed. Sad in the quiet kind of way people looked after losing something they actually loved. Daisy lifted her head suddenly and nudged the newspaper with her nose. Lily looked down. "You know him?" she asked softly. Daisy stared at the photograph for several long seconds. Her ears lifted slightly. Tail moved once against the concrete, then immediately lowered again. Not fear. Recognition. Lily frowned. "So he matters to you." The question settled strangely between them. If Daisy trusted Dominic, then why abandon her? No, not Dominic. Lily kept returning to the woman from the alley. The perfect coat, expensive shoes, the annoyed voice, the way she barely looked back before driving away. Something cold moved quietly through Lily's memory. She remembered exactly what the woman said. "Dominic barely has time for me already." Lily sat up straighter. "Wait," she whispered softly. "You were not abandoned because somebody stopped loving you." Daisy looked toward her again. "You were abandoned because somebody wanted you gone." The realization landed heavily. Mean in the way truth sometimes arrived. Lily suddenly understood why Daisy's expensive collar had been removed. Why the puppies were dumped where nobody important ever looked. Whoever left Daisy there had not wanted her found. Yet somebody else clearly wanted her back badly enough to offer a reward larger than most people ever saw in years. Her stomach twisted. Returning Daisy suddenly felt complicated. What if the wrong person answered the phone? What if the woman from the alley was still there? What if Daisy and the puppies got hurt again? Daisy shifted closer unexpectedly and rested lightly against Lily's side. Warm, trusting, like somehow the dog had already decided Lily belonged to her small broken family now. Lily looked down and sighed softly. "You make this really hard, you know that." Just then, movement near the curb caught her attention. A city bus stopped beside the sidewalk, and hanging near the side window sat a glossy advertisement board. "Lost family dog. Generous reward. Contact Russo Estate immediately." Same photograph. Same sad expression beside Daisy. Same number printed underneath. But something else caught Lily's eye this time. In tiny letters near the bottom, "Family dog inherited from the late Maria Russo. Emotional support companion." Lily looked down at Daisy again. Emotional support companion. Family dog. Late mother. Suddenly Dominic Russo felt less like a scary rich stranger and more like someone holding onto the last piece of something already gone. Daisy nudged Lily's hand again. Then, unexpectedly, she stood and looked east toward the wealthy hills overlooking downtown. Ears raised. Focused. Watching. Lily followed her gaze. Moretti Heights sat somewhere up there beyond stone gates and giant homes. Daisy whined softly once. Quiet. Uncertain. Missing something. Missing someone. Lily looked between the puppies and the city skyline for a long moment. "Okay," she whispered finally. "We will figure this out." She zipped her backpack and stood slowly. "But if somebody hurt you," she glanced toward the hills again, voice quieter now. "They're going to have to explain a few things first." And for the first time all day, Daisy's tail moved slightly beside her, as though somewhere deep down, Hope had started remembering the way home. By late afternoon, the city had turned softer around the edges. Clouds drifted apart slowly, letting pale winter sunlight spill between tall buildings while cold air carried the faint smell of coffee, wet pavement, and traffic. Lily and Daisy sat near the edge of a small public square downtown, where people hurried home pretending the world was simpler than it really felt. The puppies slept bundled together inside the laundry basket, wrapped carefully beneath Lily's hoodie, while Daisy remained close enough to guard every tiny movement. Lily had spent hours thinking. Too many questions. Too many pieces that refused to fit together. Rich family dog. Missing posters everywhere. Emotional support companion. A woman abandoning Daisy like trash. And somewhere in the middle of all of it sat a reward worth enough money to completely change her life. But every time she imagined simply calling the number and handing Daisy over, something twisted quietly inside her chest. Because Daisy trusted her now. And trust felt dangerous when you had already been abandoned enough times to stop expecting good endings. Daisy rested her head lightly against Lily's shoulder. Warm. Familiar already in a way that surprised her. Lily looked down and smiled faintly. I wish you could explain what happened, she whispered softly. Daisy lifted her head suddenly. Ears raised. Alert now. Across the street, a black luxury SUV slowed near the curb outside a cafe. Lily froze immediately. Same glossy black finish. Same kind of expensive silence rich people's cars always seem to have. Then the passenger door opened. Vanessa stepped out wearing a long cream coat, dark sunglasses, and the same sharp confidence Lily remembered from the alley. Her stomach dropped. Daisy stood immediately. No hesitation. Tail lowered. Ears stiff. A low sound rose quietly from her throat. Fear mixed with recognition. Lily's breath caught hard. It is you, she whispered softly. Vanessa disappeared into the cafe, distracted by her phone, completely unaware. But Daisy did not stop watching the door. Her whole body stayed tense now, protective instinct moving quietly beneath exhaustion. The puppies stirred softly inside the basket. Lily's heart started beating faster. She knew what she saw that night. She knew Daisy recognized her. But knowing something and proving it felt very different. Okay, Lily whispered, crouching beside Daisy. You remember her. Daisy kept staring toward the cafe entrance. Then, unexpectedly, she moved closer to the basket, standing protectively between the puppies and the building. Lily swallowed slowly. Not fear. Protection. Daisy thought Vanessa meant danger. That settled something deep inside her. Nobody protected babies from people they trusted. A memory surfaced suddenly. The alley behind Moretti's Italian steakhouse. The dumpsters. The loading entrance. The place where everything started. Lily looked toward Daisy again. Wait, she murmured quietly. Maybe somebody saw something. 20 minutes later, they stood outside the back entrance of the restaurant where rainwater still stained the pavement from the night before. Daytime made the alley look smaller somehow. Less frightening. But memory still lingered there. Daisy hesitated at first before stepping closer to the exact corner where the cardboard box had sat. One puppy whimpered softly from inside the basket. Lily crouched beside Daisy. I know, she whispered. Me too. Near the loading dock, an older kitchen employee smoked quietly beside stacked delivery crates. Gray hair, heavy coat, kind eyes softened by age and long shifts. He noticed Lily immediately. Kitchen is closed for deliveries, he called casually. Then his eyes moved toward Daisy. He frowned. Well now, he murmured. You look familiar. Lily hesitated before stepping closer. Sir, she said carefully. Did you work here 2 nights ago? He nodded slowly. Long night, he said. Busy dinner crowd. Lily glanced toward Daisy. Did you happen to see a woman in an expensive coat come through the alley? The man frowned harder now. Cream coat. Lily's chest tightened. Yes. He let out a quiet sigh through his nose. Hard to miss. She comes around sometimes. His expression shifted as he looked toward Daisy again. Wait. He crouched slightly. That dog. Daisy stepped back immediately, still wary. The man shook his head slowly. I remember now. There was a camera issue that night near the loading dock. Lily blinked. Camera. He pointed toward the corner above the alley. Small security camera mounted near the roofline. Caught some argument too, I think. Manager mentioned checking footage yesterday. Lily looked up fast. Hope moved quietly through her chest. Proof. Actual proof. Maybe enough to stop feeling crazy for believing what she saw. Could somebody still have it? She asked softly. The man shrugged. Manager usually saves footage for insurance stuff. He paused, studying Daisy again. Kid, he said gently, voice lowering now. That dog looks like she trusts you. Lily looked down at Daisy standing pressed lightly against her leg. Trust. Quiet and real. The kind nobody gave by accident. Yeah, Lily whispered softly. I think we kind of found each other. The man nodded once toward the back office door. Manager gets here around 6. He checked his watch. 40 minutes maybe. Lily looked toward the fading sunlight overhead. 40 minutes. Daisy rested close beside her while the puppies shifted softly beneath the blanket. Somewhere across town, Dominic Russo still searched for answers. And for the first time since that stormy night, Lily felt like the truth might finally be close enough to touch. The 40 minutes felt longer than they should have. Evening settled slowly over the alley behind Moretti's Italian steakhouse, soft gold fading into pale gray, while city sounds shifted from busy afternoon noise into dinner-hour chatter, drifting faintly from the front entrance. Lily sat on an overturned milk crate near the loading dock, the laundry basket resting beside her, while Daisy stayed close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The puppies slept quietly beneath the blanket, warm and fed for the first time in what felt like forever. Every now and then Daisy lifted her head toward the street, listening, watching, waiting. Lily checked the time again on the cracked phone she only used when library outlets worked long enough to charge it. 6 o'clock. Right on time, a silver sedan rolled into the employee parking lot near the alley. A short man in his early 50s stepped out carrying a takeout coffee and jingling keys clipped to his belt. Tired eyes. Restaurant polo shirt. Manager energy. The kitchen worker from earlier waved him down immediately. Marco, the man called, nodding once. Then his eyes landed on Lily. On Daisy. On the puppies. Confusion crossed his face instantly. What is going on? Marco spoke first. Kid says she found the dog. The manager frowned slightly. Found what dog? Lily carefully unfolded the newspaper clipping from her backpack and handed it over. The manager's expression changed the second he saw Daisy's picture. Well, I will be, he murmured quietly. That is Russo's dog. Daisy stood immediately, body tense again. Protective. Alert. Lily crouched beside her instinctively. She does not like strangers much right now, Lily whispered softly. The manager nodded slowly. Looks like she has reasons. Marco crossed his arms. Tell him about the cameras. The manager hesitated briefly. Technically, I am not supposed to show footage. Lily swallowed hard. Please, she said quietly. I saw someone leave her here. With the puppies. The manager looked at Daisy again. Then the puppies. Tiny sleeping bodies tucked close together beneath the blanket. Something softened slightly in his expression. Come inside, he said finally. 5 minutes. The office sat tucked near the kitchen hallway, warm compared to the cold alley outside. Smelled faintly like garlic, printer paper, and too much coffee. Lily stood awkwardly near the door while Daisy stayed glued to her side, never relaxing fully. The puppies rested quietly in the basket near the desk. The manager typed something into the security system while old camera footage loaded slowly onto the monitor. Night before last, Marco muttered. Around midnight. The screen flickered. Grainy black and white footage filled the office. Alley view. Rain. Dumpsters. Then headlights. Lily's stomach tightened immediately. The black SUV. The passenger door opened. Vanessa stepped out exactly like Lily remembered. Expensive coat. Perfect hair. Annoyed expression. Daisy shifted beside Lily the second Vanessa appeared on screen. Ears lowered. Body tense. One quiet sound escaped her throat. Fear. Recognition. Lily watched silently as Vanessa lifted the cardboard box from the back seat. Puppies inside. Tiny movements barely visible even through grainy footage. Then Daisy stepped out. Hesitant. Confused. Looking toward Vanessa with trust that somehow hurt to watch now. Nobody in the office said anything. Vanessa placed the box beside the dumpster. Looked around once. Removed the collar. Then drove away. Just like that. Marco shook his head slowly. That is cold. The manager leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable now. Russo is going to want this. Lily stared at the screen without blinking. Seeing it again somehow felt worse. Because now it looked undeniable. Deliberate. Planned. Daisy had not been lost. She had been discarded. Daisy slowly pressed against Lily's side harder now, warm body trembling faintly. Lily crouched and wrapped one arm gently around her neck. "You are okay," she whispered softly. "You are safe." The manager folded his arms. "You know Dominic Russo?" Lily shook her head quickly. "No." "Then let me tell you something," he said carefully. "Guy is powerful. Serious money. But he loved that dog." He glanced toward Daisy again. Everybody knew she belonged to his mother before she passed. Lily looked down at Daisy quietly. Emotional support companion. Family dog. The words from the newspaper suddenly landed heavier. Marco leaned closer. "Kid," he said softly, "you should call him." Lily hesitated. What if she ends up back with the wrong person? Nobody answered immediately, because everyone understood exactly who she meant. The manager reached toward the desk drawer and pulled out a business card. Dominic Russo Estate. Private line written across the front. "Then do not call the wrong person," he said quietly. "Call him directly." Lily stared at the card for several long seconds. $25,000 suddenly felt smaller than truth. Daisy lifted her head and looked toward Lily again. Tired amber eyes carrying something trust had slowly rebuilt over cold nights and shared hunger. Lily swallowed hard. "I promised you," she whispered softly, mostly to Daisy now. "Nobody gets to hurt you again." Outside, city lights had begun glowing against darkening skies. Somewhere beyond the hills, Dominic Russo still waited for answers he had almost stopped believing would come. And resting quietly inside Lily's pocket now sat the proof that could change everything. The drive to Moretti Heights felt unreal. Not because of the Blacktown car the restaurant manager insisted on lending for the evening, or because Lily had never sat in heated seats before, but because nothing about the last 2 days made sense anymore. 48 hours ago she had been cold, hungry, and alone beneath a bus stop wondering where to sleep. Now Daisy rested quietly beside her in the back seat, while 5 tiny puppies slept safely inside the laundry basket wrapped beneath blankets. Outside the windows, city lights slowly disappeared as the road curved higher into the hills where houses grew larger and silence, somehow, sounded more expensive. Lily held Dominic Russo's business card tightly in both hands. She had called an hour earlier. At first, the voice answering sounded suspicious, protective, until Lily quietly said one sentence. "I think I found Daisy." Everything changed after that. Dominic himself had come onto the line. Calm at first, then quieter than calm. Hopeful in the kind of careful way people became after disappointment lasted too long. He had asked one question. "Is she safe?" Lily remembered looking down at Daisy resting her chin against her knee. "Yeah," she whispered into the phone then. But somebody hurt her trust. Silence followed, long enough to matter. "Please bring her home," Dominic finally said softly. "I think we both need answers." The estate appeared through iron gates taller than anything Lily had ever stood near before. Stone walls stretched endlessly beneath soft gold lights, while security quietly waved them through after checking Dominic's instructions twice. The house itself looked less like a mansion and more like something built for people who stopped believing ordinary things could protect them from loneliness. Huge windows, warm lights glowing inside, gardens sleeping beneath winter frost. Yet somehow, standing near the front steps waiting in a dark coat, Dominic Russo looked nothing like Lily expected. No bodyguards surrounding him, no arrogance. Just exhaustion hidden behind expensive clothes and tired eyes carrying too much quiet. The moment the car stopped, Daisy lifted her head sharply, ears raised, heartbeat changing beneath stillness. Lily held her breath. Dominic stepped forward slowly as the back door opened. "Daisy," he whispered. The German shepherd hesitated only a second. Then something inside her softened. Her tail moved once. Small, careful. She stepped out slowly, still thin from stress, still cautious from hurt. Dominic crouched immediately despite the cold marble beneath him. "Hey, girl," he said quietly, voice shaking just enough to sound real. "I have been looking everywhere for you." Daisy stopped inches away, studied him, then carefully leaned forward and pressed her nose against his hand. Relief crossed Dominic's face so quickly it almost hurt to watch. Not dramatic, not loud, just grief finally letting go of breath it had held too long. He wrapped one arm gently around her neck. "I am sorry," he whispered softly. "I am so sorry." Lily stood quietly nearby holding the basket of puppies while something warm settled unexpectedly inside her chest. Because Daisy looked different now. Safer somehow. Still cautious. But home mattered. Then the front door opened. Vanessa stepped outside. "Dominic, what is going on?" she asked sharply before stopping completely. Daisy changed instantly. Her body stiffened. Ears lowered. Protective instinct rising fast. Without hesitation, she moved directly between Vanessa and the puppies. A low warning sound escaped her throat. Dominic slowly stood. His expression changed too. Quiet. Serious. "Funny thing," he said calmly. Apparently Daisy did not run away. Vanessa's face shifted almost invisibly. "What?" Lily swallowed hard and stepped forward, hands trembling slightly as she pulled the phone from her pocket. Security footage already loaded. "I saw what happened," she said quietly. "At the restaurant." Dominic looked toward her slowly. Lily pressed play. Rain. Alley. SUV. Vanessa abandoning Daisy and the puppies beside the dumpster. Nobody spoke while the footage played. Not even wind moved for a second. When it ended, silence settled heavily across the front steps. Vanessa crossed her arms too quickly. "This is ridiculous," she said sharply. "It was temporary. She just had puppies and—" Dominic lifted one hand quietly. Not angry. Just finished. "My mother rescued Daisy," he said softly. "You knew what she meant to me." Vanessa looked away first. Dominic exhaled slowly through his nose. "Someone who abandons something helpless does not belong near my family." No yelling. No cruelty. Just disappointment heavy enough to sound final. Vanessa said nothing after that. She turned and walked back toward the house, heels echoing quietly against stone before disappearing completely. Dominic stood still for several seconds before finally turning toward Lily. "You protected them," he said quietly. Lily shrugged awkwardly. "I just did not want them alone." Dominic looked toward the puppies sleeping safely beneath blankets. Then Daisy resting close beside Lily instead of him. That part did not escape his notice. Daisy kept glancing back toward Lily every few seconds, like trust had already chosen something important. Weeks later, spring arrived slowly across the city. Lily no longer slept behind laundromats or bus stops. Dominic had quietly arranged a safe foster home first, then something more permanent through people he trusted. School started again. Warm meals became normal. And every weekend, Lily visited the new rescue shelter built quietly outside the city in memory of Dominic's late mother. The sign near the entrance read simply, "Maria's Place." No animal left behind. Daisy lived there with her puppies now, though somehow she always seemed happiest whenever Lily walked through the gates. Because home, Lily learned, was not always the place you started. Sometimes it was simply the place where somebody finally chose not to leave.